Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
However, Brenda refused to believe him still. Her son had used so many excuses to refuse the blind dates she had arranged, so she would not believe him no matter what he said. Although he had told her a name, she still disregarded it as a lie. "Don't try to fool me. Do you think I'm so easily fooled?" Brenda retorted without mercy. Meanwhile, Ingrid let out a sigh of relief. It turns out Nigel is such a humorous person. It's all right. I'll take it slow and make him like me. Maybe he's just not used to dating someone on blind dates. The older ladies mentioned his past blind dates earlier, and his refusal to go on those dates demonstrates that he is neither a playboy nor a scumbag. "Mrs. Manson, perhaps Nigel and I can become friends first. Don't pressure him too much." Ingrid smiled and suggested. "Oh, Ingrid, you're such a good child. Sure, you two can start as friends first." Brenda nodded. Meanwhile, Nigel secretly felt resigned. It did not matter to him whether Ingrid was beautiful or not because he already had someone in his heart. Moreover, he was a person who prioritized feelings over everything in a romantic relationship. After meeting so many young women, only Queenie could make his heart race wildly. At that moment, he received a message on his phone. "What's up?" Queenie asked. Surveying his current situation, he knew he could not tell her that his mom had arranged a blind date for him. Therefore, he made up a lie. "I'm still at the company. How about you?" "My dad and I are accompanying a client for dinner. Seems like Miss Silverstein is about to become President Silverstein." Rising to his feet, Nigel excused himself from the table. "Excuse me. I need to make a call." At that moment, Ingrid's aunt eyed her niece to hint at her to follow him outside to have some alone time with him, at which Ingrid got the message and left the room as well. Later, Nigel came to the railing near the corridor on the second floor to text Queenie while also taking a breather. Near the railing on the third floor, Queenie was also out taking a breather as the men were smoking inside the private room, making it feel stuffy. She smiled when she saw the message and replied, "Aren't you going to have dinner?" After sending that message, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a man standing near the railing on the second floor and her eyes widened in surprise. "Isn't that Nigel?" It was then the man turned around and she immediately recognized him. Just as she was about to call out to him, a young woman suddenly appeared and stood beside him. Then, she began happily chatting with him. At that sight, Queenie felt her heart sinking and stared disbelievingly at them. Why would the man, who just said he was at the company, suddenly appear in this restaurant? More importantly, an attractive woman was standing beside him. Judging from what she could see, they seemed to be happily conversing. As Queenie watched them, the grip on her phone tightened. "I'll be having dinner soon," Nigel replied at that moment. Looking at the message he sent, she suddenly felt suffocated. Nothing could beat the despair one felt when finding out the person one loved had lied to them. How can this be? Why would he lie to me? Soon enough, the situation led her to think about Bonnie's words. Am I wrong to think that Nigel is different? While she hid behind the pillar, she peered at the conversing couple on the second-floor corridor. Though she could not hear what they were talking about, she could see the adoration in the young woman's eyes as she looked at Nigel. She felt her heart break into pieces once again. After hiding for a while, Queenie glimpsed at the second-floor corridor but discovered that the two had disappeared. It seemed like they had returned to have dinner in their private room. Clutching her chest, she felt her heart hurt so much that she could not breathe. A dispirited Queenie headed to the bathroom while her eyes innately turned red. She wanted to rush over and question him on his affectionate behavior with another woman while being in a relationship with him. "Am I just one of the many girls you have?" When she returned to her private room, she did not feel like listening to her father's conversation with the client anymore. Rather, she hung her head low, and her mind was filled with the scene of Nigel happily conversing with that young woman earlier. "Queenie, what's the matter? Are you not feeling well?" Brandon noticed something off with his daughter. "It's nothing, Dad. I just want to go home." Queenie wanted to head out for a walk to clear her mind. "Sure, go ahead. It has been a tiring day for you." Although he was having a good time chatting with his client, he also understood his daughter's condition, for she had just started getting involved in the family business. When Queenie arrived on the second floor, it seemed like her legs had a mind of their own as they brought her to the private room where Nigel was. She wanted so badly to confirm the thoughts in her head, so she headed for the door of his private room. At that moment, the door was pushed open, and out came a noble-looking woman. Then, Queenie dashed toward the door and took a quick peek inside. Her eyes happened to notice Nigel's back, and he was sitting right beside the woman who was talking with him earlier. Meanwhile, the woman who exited the room closed the door while Queenie stood frozen in the corridor while a ball of rage burned inside her. Why? Why would he pretend to be an affectionate and devoted person before me, then converse so happily with another woman behind my back? A waiter came over and politely inquired, "Miss, are you here for someone?" Frantically retreating a step, Queenie stammered, "No. I came to the wrong side." After saying that, she turned around and scurried toward the elevator. She sprinted out of the restaurant before the stuffiness inside her chest subsided. Then, she aimlessly walked toward the brightly lit area. Tears began to uncontrollably stream down her cheeks as her mind was filled with sweet moments of her and Nigel. Is all of this just an illusion? Arriving at an unoccupied bench, she plopped onto it and closed her eyes while letting her tears drift down her face. She had never put so much effort into liking a man, and she would even imagine their future together before falling asleep at night. Yet, all of that was now crumbled into hopeless fragments. Just like her heart, it was shattered into pieces. Once again, Bonnie's words rang in her head. Men always prefer novelty. Once his interest in you has subsided, a man like Nigel will definitely get a new woman. To her dismay, she did not expect Bonnie's words to be so on point. Moreover, she was so certain that he was different. The joke is on me. Ring. Ring. Fishing out her phone, she took a glance and noticed that it was Nigel calling. As she stared blankly at his name on the screen, she let it ring without any intention of picking it up. At last, she rose to her feet and hailed a cab home. Back in the restaurant, Nigel thought it was blaring inside the room, so he deliberately came out with his phone to make a call. However, confusion dawned upon him as he realized that Queenie had missed his calls twice. Is her phone not with her because she's swamped with her work? If so, I'll call again later. The dinner party was almost over, but since his mom was present, he was not allowed to leave early and had to wait till everyone finished their dinner before heading out together. "Mom, I'll drive you home," Nigel offered. "You don't have to. I've asked Stephen to send me home. How about you send Ingrid home?" "She needs a ride," Brenda ordered specifically. "Nigel, I'm sorry for the trouble." Ingrid seized the chance. "Mom, I'll let Ashley come over to send her home. I have somewhere to be." Nigel wanted to head over to the Silverstein residence. However, Brenda's gaze turned serious as she warned, "Nigel, that is an order. Be good and send Ingrid home." Since Brenda was satisfied with Ingrid and refused to have her son avoid getting married, she was dead set on forcing him to send Ingrid home. "Nigel, my house is not far from here," Ingrid added shyly. Feeling defeated, he could only nod. "Fine. I'll send her home. You should head home early." When Brenda saw that Nigel had finally agreed, she turned to Ingrid. "Have a nice chat with Nigel on your way home, Ingrid." "I will, Mrs. Manson." She nodded appreciatively. Of course, she knew Brenda liked her. As long as she could snatch Nigel's heart, pleasing her future in-laws would not be an issue. The only setback today was that Nigel did not treat her any differently, nor did he even spare her more than a few glances throughout the night. She could still tell if a man was interested in her. Now that Ingrid had gotten into his car, she naturally would not give up a chance to brief him more about herself, such as her studies and how she planned to start her own business after graduating. She wanted him to know how hardworking and ambitious she was. While she was at it, she also tried a series of seductive moves on him. For instance, leaning against him out of the blue or cheerfully playing with her curly hair while looking at him with her innocent eyes. "Nigel, I heard you like racing. You're so talented." "I almost lost my life doing that, so I stopped long ago," he replied. "Huh? Really? You should be more careful," she reminded him in concern. Just like Ingrid had mentioned, her home was indeed not far from the restaurant and only a 20-minute drive away. "Oh, how I wish I lived further away. I could have chatted with him more." "Nigel, can we exchange numbers? That way, I can always ask you if I have any questions," she requested while looking at him with pleading eyes. "I'm sorry, but I'm swamped with work and can't help you much," he rejected before getting out of the car. While blinking her eyes, she felt her heart skipping a beat when she saw him walking over to her side. He's such a gentleman. However, Nigel's action only intended for her to get out of the car sooner so she would not delay his plans to the Silverstein residence. Under such a situation, Ingrid had no choice but to alight from the vehicle. As soon as she did, he shut the door and returned to the driver's seat. "Nigel," before she could finish her words, the car had already sped away, and all she saw were the disappearing taillights. She sighed as she could not wrap her head around this situation. Am I not good enough? Why is Nigel not the slightest bit interested in me? Meanwhile, Queenie had arrived home as she composed herself before entering the living room, where she was met by the scene of Bonnie and her mother perusing a pile of brochures. When Bonnie saw that Queenie had returned, she deliberately called her over. "Queenie, give me a hand and choose the best house out of these. Mom and I are dizzy from all the options." Since Queenie was not in the mood to do anything, she shook her head and refused. "I'm tired." "Queenie, are you sad because I'm going to buy a new house?" Bonnie deliberately asked that question. "I'm not sad. You can buy whichever house you like," Queenie stated calmly. On the other hand, Maggie also glanced at her older daughter, believing she would not be bothered about this matter. Then, she turned to Bonnie and assured her, "Queenie is just tired. Don't be silly. Mom, look at this one. This is the most expensive one of all. It costs 80 million, but it's the one I like the most. If I live here, I'll be neighbors with celebrities. Mom, I want this one." Bonnie raised her voice while saying that. She knew Queenie's house was worth 50 million, while hers would cost 30 million more than hers. "Sure. If you like this one, we'll get it and forget about the others," Maggie agreed. "Yes. Thank you, Mom. I knew you loved me the most." After saying that, Bonnie embraced her mother in excitement. Meanwhile, Queenie listened to their conversation while heading upstairs and swallowing all the inner thoughts that filled her heart. Back then, she would share her feelings with her mom, but now that Bonnie had returned, her relationship with her mom seemed to have suddenly distanced. She did not dare to tell her mom about things that upset her because she was afraid that Bonnie would find out about it and add salt to her injuries. After heading upstairs, Queenie took a bath and changed into a pair of comfortable pajamas, but just when she was about to go to bed, she heard the familiar roar of a sports car's engine through the balcony. It was a tranquil night, so she was certain that she did not mishear it. "That's Nigel. Is he here?" On the other hand, Bonnie also heard the sound of the engine and felt her heart skip a beat. Is Nigel here? Then, she quickly faced her mom. Mom, why is Nigel coming for a visit at such a late hour? It's not appropriate, is it? They haven't even gotten engaged, nor has he proposed, so why would he come here now? She deliberately led Maggie to some negative ideas, which were already in Maggie's head. It's already 9 p.m., so it's kind of inappropriate for him to come over now. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Just as Maggie was about to get up, she heard Queenie hollering from the second-floor railing, Mom, tell him I'm not home. I'm tired, so I don't feel like meeting him. Maggie was taken aback. What's the matter? Is Queenie not talking to Nigel? Did they get into a fight? As soon as Bonnie heard that, she instantly sprang from the couch. Mom, I'll accompany you to the door. Don't worry, Queenie. We won't let young Master Nigel through the door. Meanwhile, Queenie chose to turn a deaf ear. Whatever. She was feeling extremely frustrated tonight anyway. Mom, something must have happened between Queenie and young Master Nigel. Maybe he mistreated her. Bonnie wanted nothing more than for the couple to sever ties, which was why she said that to Maggie. Hearing that, Maggie became lost in her thoughts. Did he mistreat Queenie? She then approached the small door in the courtyard and a victorious smile appeared on Bonnie's face. Huh. Finally, Queenie and Nigel are having a dispute. I must take this opportunity to break them up entirely. As they expected, the person standing outside the door was Nigel, who greeted them through the gate. Good evening, Mrs. Silverstein. Is Queenie home? Queenie is still out meeting a client with her dad. Is there anything important you must see her for? Maggie asked probingly. Oh, so she's not home yet? I thought she would have already been home at this hour. Disappointment filled Nigel's heart, but he also felt distressed for her. Is she that busy right after taking over the company? Young Master Nigel, you and Queenie aren't engaged yet. Aren't you afraid that others might feel jealous or badmouth Queenie because you came to her house at such a late hour? Bonnie was stirring the pot. Bonnie, stop it. Maggie glared at her and chastised her. I didn't say anything wrong. Bonnie pouted her red lips. If that's the case, then I'll visit her tomorrow. I tried calling her, but she wouldn't pick up, so I'm worried about her. She's with her father. What are you so worried about? Bonnie's tone was stern. It was the first time she dared speak so rudely to Nigel. Anyway, she stopped hoping that he would fall in love with her, so she did not bother being polite to him as a result. Enough, Bonnie. Stop that. Young Master Nigel, Queenie is currently with my husband, so there's nothing that should concern you. Have a good rest. At that moment, Bonnie whispered into Maggie's ears, Mom, I just saw Queenie crying. Why don't you head back and talk to her? In case she does something irrational. Hearing that, Maggie became anxious and said to Nigel, Young Master Nigel, please see yourself out. Soon, she turned around and went back inside, leaving Bonnie alone. Subsequently, Bonnie called out to the departing man. Young Master Nigel, wait a minute. I have something to tell you. That made Nigel frown. Although he did not like Bonnie, she was still Queenie's younger sister, so he reserved some respect for her. Miss Bonnie, what would you like to say to me? He asked through the gate. Actually, Queenie's home, but she doesn't want to see you. She acted as if she told him that because she was trying to be nice. She was eager to know what had happened between them. She's home? He was surprised, but it soon turned into sadness. She's home, but why doesn't she want to see me? Yes. Queenie said she didn't want to see you and asked Mom to send you away. Did you mistreat her in any way? Bonnie questioned. With narrowed eyes, Nigel racked his brain but could not decipher how he had angered Queenie. We just kissed last night. Bonnie, please open the door. I need to head in and talk to Queenie. However, Bonnie shook her head while explaining, but Queenie said not to open the door. She would hate me to death if I disobeyed her. Bonnie, I'm begging you. Nigel was desperate to look for Queenie and explain everything. It was then that Bonnie unlocked the door. Young Master Nigel, go ahead. It's better to clarify things face to face. Then, she trailed after the anxious man and waited for a good show. In the meantime, Queenie had already left her room and was sitting on the couch. A distressed Maggie was in the middle of asking her what had happened when she saw her daughter's red eyes. It seemed that she had been paying too much attention to Bonnie and had neglected Queenie, which she felt inherently guilty about. Assuming that Nigel must have already left, Queenie suddenly became even more disheartened. She pursed her lips, and tears were encircling her eyes when she saw the door open before a figure dashed in. Her eyes widened scarcely as she sprang to her feet in anger. How did he get in? Meanwhile, Maggie could not help but be frustrated at Bonnie for letting him in. Geez. Queenie is still upset. Young Master Nigel, Queenie isn't in a good mood and doesn't wish to see you. Please leave. She took a few steps forward, attempting to block him from entering the room. At the same time, Nigel was shocked by Queenie's teary eyes. Looking at the sad and resentful gaze she was throwing at him, he felt as if someone was gripping his heart and rendering his breathing difficult. Queenie, what's the matter? Since Maggie was blocking his way, he could only stand in the hall and look at Queenie. At this moment, his identity did not matter because Maggie would not let him approach her at all. Go away. I don't want to see you. Queenie turned her back away as she did not want him to see this vulnerable side of her. Rather, she intently chased him away. Don't come to me ever again. I never want to see you anymore. Meanwhile, Bonnie stood behind Nigel while enjoying the free ticket show. She did not expect Queenie would hate him to the point that she never wanted to see him again. What did Nigel do to anger her to this point? There's only one thing that would make a woman this sad: he cheated on her. Remembering the words Queenie refuted so confidently last time, Bonnie revealed a satisfying smirk. Guess who's the clown now? Boo-hoo. Queenie, let's talk this out. What happened? How did I hurt you? Nigel felt like he would not be able to decipher the situation even if he had 10 brains. Of course, he would not be able to. How on earth could he have known that Queenie was at the restaurant when he was at the dinner party? Young Master Nigel, my daughter is not in a good mood at the moment, so please leave. You should talk about this later. Maggie stared at Nigel sternly as she spoke in an unwelcoming way. She would never allow anyone to harm her daughter. Young Master Nigel, I told you that Queenie doesn't want to see you, yet you insisted on coming in. Look what's happened. Bonnie added a snarky remark from the side. At that point, Nigel was so anxious that he tightened his fists. This was the first time he felt a dull pain in his chest because of a woman. While looking at Queenie's back, he thought that receiving a beating or scolding was better than being given the cold shoulder. If I did anything wrong, you could hit me or yell at me if that makes you feel better. Can we just talk this out? He was reluctant to leave. There's nothing to talk about between us. At that moment, Queenie turned around to face him. Her eyes were red, but her gaze was firm. It was my fault for thinking you were different. Yes. It's my fault for not seeing through him. I thought he was different, but it turns out that any man will be the same as Leslie. He was just better at hiding it from me, and I was lucky to have witnessed him having a date with another woman. Nigel had always been good with words, but he was now speechless as he was out of ideas to convince Queenie to talk to him. Young Master Nigel, please leave. Do you still not understand? Queenie doesn't like you anymore. Bonnie's words added insult to injury. Bonnie, send young Master Nigel out. Or else, we'll call the cops, Maggie reprimanded. Mrs. Silverstein, I'll leave. I don't have any ill intentions. I'll just come back tomorrow, Nigel explained hurriedly while looking at Queenie with reluctant eyes. He took 2 steps back before taking his leave, after which Bonnie followed behind to send him out. Young Master Nigel, do you know why Queenie is mad at you? She yelled at his back. Turning his head to face her, he asked, do you know? Perhaps she fell in love with another man. You might not be the Prince Charming she's looking for. Bonnie wanted to make him feel as if he was being despised. That's impossible, he retorted her calmly. After his sports car sped away, she felt utterly frustrated. Why does a rich and noble man like Nigel only have eyes for Queenie? Back in the living room, a disheartened Maggie looked at Queenie, who was biting her lips. Tell me what happened. Weren't you two doing well before? When Dad and I went to have dinner today, I saw him on a date with another woman. Queenie did not plan to keep that from her mom. After listening to her explanation, Maggie became instantly furious and criticized, and I thought he was a good man. Turns out we were wrong about him. If that's the case, Queenie, you should sever all ties with him. Standing by the door, Bonnie heard everything before a proud smile slowly crept on her face. With her understanding of Queenie's personality, Queenie and Nigel were done. Ever since the incident with Leslie, Bonnie discovered that Queenie's character had turned tenacious. In other words, she could not stand even the slightest sense of betrayal in her relationship. Queenie, young Master Nigel has left. He seemed quite angry. Did you know? What's there to be angry about? Queenie frowned. While shaking her head, Bonnie replied, I don't know either. Maybe he thinks you're being unreasonable for getting mad at him for no reason. I saw him slamming the car door when he got in. Biting her lips, Queenie felt a sense of resentment before standing up. Mom, I'm heading back to my room. After she ascended the stairs, Bonnie trailed behind her. Mom, I'll talk to her. Queenie was about to close the door when Bonnie stopped her and squeezed into her room. With my understanding of men, I can tell you that they are all the same. There's nothing special about Nigel. Plus, I think he seems to look down on our family. Are you done? Queenie turned around to glare at her before she retorted, I don't need you to make snarky remarks about my life. I'm just trying to look out for you. I want you to keep a cool mind and not overlook his cheating incident just because he's hot and wealthy. Bonnie wore a conflicted expression. Since Queenie was still in a bad mood, everything she said was magnified in front of her. Queenie, Nigel must have had a lot of women before you. He's the successor of a large financial group, so I'm sure he's been low profile because he has all the means to keep control of the media about him. I'd say that such a man is dirty and unworthy of you. Get out. Queenie was feeling awful enough at this point and she wished it would come to a stop. Before exiting the room, Bonnie turned around and added, it seems like Nigel will not stop until he gets you, so you'd better prepare yourself. Since he has spent so much money on you, I'm sure he'd want to get something back. With that, she left the room. As her room descended into silence, Queenie could not hold back her sadness anymore and began sobbing her heart out. Right at that moment, her phone rang, and she glanced at the device with teary eyes before turning it off. I don't want to hear anything from you, jerk. In the meantime, Nigel was waiting for the traffic light when he heard a message coming from his Bluetooth earphones. Hello, the person you're calling has switched off their device. Please try again later. Queenie, what exactly happened to you? He still could not figure out the whole story, despite recalling all the details since they parted last night. In the end, he parked by the roadside and frustratedly phoned Julian. Hello. Come out for a drink. What's the matter? Having a bad day? Julian immediately noticed that something was up. Come out and drink with me. Usual place. Once Nigel said that, he hung up and sped toward the lounge he and Julian frequented. When Nigel arrived, he found a couch in the corner and plopped onto it. Melancholia emanated from his whole figure as all of the memories he shared with Queenie, from the moment they met until tonight's fallout, were replayed in his head. It was then he discovered that he could not stand the idea of not having her in his life. Soon, Julian arrived in his sports attire, obviously indicating that he had come from the gym. After he sat down, he discovered that his friend seemed to have lost his soul. What's the matter? Fought with Miss Silverstein? I don't know what I did wrong to make her so angry that she doesn't even want to take my calls. After saying that, Nigel palmed his forehead and sighed. Do you want a drink? I'll drive you home later. While saying that, Julian raised his hand and beckoned a waiter over to their seating before ordering 2 bottles of whiskey. Julian, do you know what liking someone feels like? A depressed Nigel poured himself a glass and drank it. Meanwhile, Julian was contemplating that question seriously. Having debuted for 5 years and been shipped with other artists many times, he still felt like the idea of being in love was vague. In the end, he shook his head. I'm not sure. While clutching his chest, Nigel explained, it hurts here, and it hurts bad. You can't imagine the pain I felt when she said she never wants to see me again. The pain is so intense that I felt like I was about to pass out. Do you know? Sigh. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. He then downed the whole glass of whiskey and submerged himself in his misery. Julian was taken aback by what he saw. It seems like Miss Silverstein has him hooked. Or else, he wouldn't be this depressed. Nigel, you have to have more confidence in yourself. I'm sure there must be a misunderstanding between you and Miss Silverstein. My mom made me go on a blind date today. Queenie was still messaging me then. At that moment, Nigel's eyes suddenly widened as if he had an epiphany. I lied to her. She asked me where I was, and I said I was at the company. Could she have known that I wasn't at the company? Did she find out that I lied to her? Nigel finally thought about this incident and immediately felt like punching himself. It must be because she found out I was at that dinner party and not at the company. She has Cecily's number, so maybe she called and asked Cecily about my whereabouts. She knows I've lied to her. Scratching his head, he ruffled his originally neat, ink-black hair and said, Julian, come with me. I need to find her and explain everything. I need to tell her the truth about this incident. Have you gone mad? It's 11:00 p.m. now. The Silversteins will never let you in. It'd be best if you head over tomorrow, Julian suggested. I'm so stupid and I deserve such treatment. While saying so, Nigel grabbed the whiskey bottle and poured himself another drink. Julian, you must heed this lesson. If you manage to find a girlfriend in the future, you must not lie to her. The consequences are too immense. You haven't figured out how to maintain a good romantic relationship, yet you're already lecturing me about it. Julian chuckled. Come on. Let's go to your place. I need company tonight, Nigel told him. Luckily, Julian's assistant sent him here, so he drove them home in Nigel's car. At the same time, a black paparazzi vehicle was following them with its camera aimed at the sports car, recording everything. Since Julian's home was a penthouse duplex in the city center, he parked the sports car in the basement before the black off-road vehicle followed him inside. He descended the car and walked around to the passenger seat to help the drunk Nigel out of the car. Then, he affectionately hugged Julian's shoulder, and the two headed for the elevator. However, they were oblivious that all of their actions were captured by the camera. Subsequently, the two men inside the off-road vehicle began to discuss what they saw. This is solid proof. We're going to make this tomorrow's headlines. What should we name this piece? Top actor Julian Gilmore spends a night with mysterious man? That's not catchy enough. It should be rumor-free actor Julian Gilmore's deepest secret revealed. Meanwhile, Nigel treated Julian's home like his own, and he curled on the couch with his chin resting on his knees. Not only did he look insecure, but he also looked unconcerned about his image while sitting in that posture. Julian clicked his tongue as he took a glance at his friend, wondering if being in a relationship would make someone this insane. I'll get up at 6 o'clock a.m. tomorrow and head over to her house at 8 o'clock a.m. so that I can catch her on her way to work and explain everything. Not intending to care about Nigel, Julian responded, "Find a place to sleep. I'll be in my room reading my script." Meanwhile, at the Silverstein residence, Queenie did not catch a wink that night. Though she wanted to fall asleep, the scene of Nigel happily conversing with the other woman constantly appeared in her mind whenever she closed her eyes. Judging from the affection in the woman's eyes, Queenie was sure that the two were close. On top of that, the entire private room was filled with elders, so their relationship must have gained full support from them. As for her, she and Nigel had known each other for so long, yet he never mentioned bringing her to meet his parents. Does that mean he doesn't value our relationship? The more she thought about it, the more certain she was that Nigel had side chicks and she was only one of them. Who knows how many more women he has? Queenie, you would have been better off being single than being treated this way. In the room adjacent to Queenie's, Bonnie was so excited that she could not sleep. Her wish had finally come true. Queenie and Nigel were about to break up. Soon, it was dawn. At 6:30 a.m., Nigel sat up from the couch and checked the time on his phone. Then, he went straight into the bathroom to wash up and leave Julian's home. Subsequently, he drove toward the Silverstein residence. In the meantime, a piece of breaking news posted at 3 o'clock a.m. was now trending on the internet. It was an exclusive involving Julian, and it left his fans in a state of shock. Is this the man we idolize? Such shocking news would naturally cause an uproar when trending on the web. Unbeknownst to the drama, Nigel was still driving when he received a call from Ashley. It was rare for him to answer a call so early in the morning. "Hello. What's up? Mr. Manson, have you seen the news? One of the media companies managed to take a picture of you and Mr. Gilmore and post it online. Also, they wrote all sorts of nonsense about it." "What did they write about?" "They said that you guys..." Cut to the chase. "They said you guys are a couple." Nigel felt like he was about to explode in anger. Which media company posted it? Hurry up and deal with them. The news was posted at 3 o'clock a.m. and is now the top 3 trending news on the internet. Also, it's the top news in the entertainment section. You guys settle this. I have something else I need to do. After saying that, he hung up and focused on driving. At the Silverstein residence, Queenie composed herself and decided to accompany her father to the company that morning. She had decided to forget about her romantic life and focus on her career, which was the most important priority right now. Her new goal now was to be a happy and rich single woman. At 8 o'clock a.m., breakfast was served at the dining table. Bonnie had woken up early as well because she wanted to see if Nigel would look for Queenie or not. She would have been sleeping if it had not been for this matter. However, she was so excited that she could not fall asleep. Judging by Nigel's expression when he left yesterday, he will come over this morning and catch Queenie when she leaves for work. Therefore, she had ordered the servants to notify her immediately if someone came. Just as she had expected, a servant came knocking at 8 o'clock a.m. to notify her, "Miss Bonnie, young Master Nigel is here. He's standing outside the gate." Meanwhile, Bonnie took a sip of her red wine and questioned, "Where is Queenie?" "Miss Queenie is still upstairs. I just went up to notify her for breakfast." A smile appeared on Bonnie's lips as she sped toward the small gate by the courtyard, where she saw an anxious-looking Nigel. "Bonnie, open the gate for me." He was now treating Bonnie even nicer as he was desperate for her assistance. She felt her heart skip a beat when she heard that, but she knew it was all for show. Nigel only said that to make her happy so that she would open the gate for him. "Young Master Nigel, why did you come back? Didn't Queenie say she didn't want to see you again?" "I have something to say to her." Nigel pushed the gate. "Please let me in. Do you know how much Queenie cried last night?" "Young Master Nigel, she said that if you want to see her, you have to kneel before her and apologize. Or else, I can't let you in." She planned to humiliate Nigel in Queenie's name so that he would understand how difficult it was to please Queenie. How could an ordinary, proud man stand such a humiliating and unreasonable request? Of course, that man would turn around and leave immediately. Nigel is such a noble and proud man, so he definitely won't kneel before a woman to ask for her forgiveness. No matter how much he loves Queenie, he won't be able to accept such humiliation. In the meantime, a servant brought over a tub of water to wipe the pillars in the hall when she noticed Queenie standing there. The servant wanted to address her, but Queenie gestured for the servant to keep quiet, to which the servant quickly obeyed. While standing in her spot, Queenie could hear every word of the conversation being shared at the gate. In other words, she heard the wicked request Bonnie had asked of Nigel and she frowned. However, she did not immediately stop them. "Young Master Nigel, if you're unwilling to kneel before Queenie and ask for her forgiveness, you should leave now so that my parents won't see you. It'd be embarrassing if they chased you out again," Bonnie nicely reminded him. "First, let me see Queenie. Then, I'll apologize to her however she sees fit." Nigel's gaze was firm and showed no intentions of backing down. Bonnie was dumbfounded and blinked her eyes while staring at him in disbelief. This man must be crazy. With his identity, he can have any woman he wants, but he's actually willing to kneel before Queenie. It was then she suddenly looked forward to seeing how Queenie would drive him away, so she feigned being nice and suggested, "Since your feelings for Queenie are so sincere, I'll let you in. When you see her later, remember to not say anything and just kneel on the ground and apologize." "That will work." Nodding, Nigel responded, "All right. Please open the door." Once she opened the door, he went straight into the house. Meanwhile, Bonnie was trailing behind with her hand covering her face, ready to enjoy the show. Just as Nigel came to the steps outside the hall, his happiness replaced the gloom on his face because the woman he so desperately wanted to see was standing right before him. The attire Queenie wore today was in the colors black and white. She wore a black shirt with a white-fitting skirt with her hair down. Her temperament was instantly magnified, and her entire figure exuded an awe-inspiring and majestic aura. The surprise in Nigel's eyes turned into awe as he lowered his head to look at the floor, finding the perfect spot to kneel. Right when he was about to pull his pant legs, Queenie reprimanded with wide eyes, "Are you really going to kneel? Why are you taking Bonnie's joke so seriously?" On the other hand, Bonnie was eager to see what exciting drama might unfold, but she did not expect to see Queenie at the entrance. She guiltily turned around and was about to escape when Queenie caught her and ordered, "Bonnie, stop right there." Standing in her spot, Bonnie was instantly displeased and turned around to glare at Queenie. "What do you want?" "If you ever spout nonsense again, I won't let you off so easily," Queenie warned coldly. Nigel also glanced at Bonnie. Although he did not believe a single word she said, he still cooperated with her to get inside the Silverstein residence. Yet, when he saw Queenie, he was sincerely willing to kneel before her and ask for her forgiveness. Following that, Bonnie turned around and left while Queenie grabbed her bag and was ready to leave for the company. "Queenie, I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied to you. In fact, I wasn't at the company but at a restaurant having dinner with my mom and her friends," Nigel immediately apologized. Ever since he figured out the reason, explaining everything to Queenie had become his top priority. With a hook of her lips, Queenie turned to face him while sneering. I just happened to be at that same restaurant last night, but I don't think you were with your mom. That young woman is the real reason you were there, am I right? The only feeling Nigel felt at that moment was anxiety. So, this is what made Queenie so angry last night. Was she at the same restaurant? Did she see me and Ingrid together? Ignoring him, Queenie headed for her car, but he quickly caught up with her and continued to explain, Queenie, last night's dinner was arranged by my mom. She didn't tell me it was a blind date, and I only found out about it when I got there. I tried to leave, but my mom wouldn't let me. I also told her that I already have someone I like and that I already have a girlfriend, but my mom won't believe me. Queenie, you can shout at me however you want. After saying that, he oppressively grabbed her arms and forbade her from leaving. With nowhere to go, she turned to face him and revealed an angry countenance on her stunning face. Nigel, do you see 3 words on my face? Huh? What 3 words? He was dumbfounded. Easy to fool, Queenie said through gritted teeth. Perhaps Nigel had limited experience in quarreling with a woman, or perhaps he was used to being the one who listened to others' explanations because it was obvious that he was not good at apologizing. Therefore, he looked rather dumb at this moment. Queenie escaped his grip and sneered. I thought you were different from Leslie, but I was wrong. You men are all the same. So, you can play all you want in the future, but don't come and look for me anymore. I don't want to be someone else's replacement. Once again, Nigel froze in his spot as he did not expect her attitude to become so cold suddenly. Throughout her sleepless night, Queenie had been thinking about how men loved being surrounded by women. The more she thought about it, the angrier and more discouraged she became. She would rather hide under the covers, cry her heart out, and gradually forget about him than be played like a fool. That was her character, she could not stand the slightest bit of betrayal. On the other hand, Bonnie never left the courtyard and had been hiding behind the trees, jealously watching Nigel apologize while Queenie pushed him away like a queen. She would not have been able to do it if it had been her. Rather, she would have almost forgiven him instantly if a man as excellent as Nigel merely flashed a smile at her. Unlocking her car, Queenie pulled open the door of the driver's seat and got in while the man beside her instantly opened the door and sat on the passenger seat like a sly fox. She was about to fasten her seatbelt when she swept her gaze across the man beside her and ordered, "Get out." "I won't. Unless you listen to what I have to say, I'll keep following you around until you're willing to listen." While biting her lower lip, she compromised. "I'll give you 5 minutes. After that, get out of my car." Nigel's eyes brightened when he heard that, so he took a deep breath and organized his thoughts before beginning his explanation. 2 days ago, in the afternoon, I got a call from my mom, insisting that I attend a gathering. I didn't think much of it back then and simply agreed. That's why I only discovered there was a young woman there after I arrived in the room. It was also then that I realized my mom had arranged another blind date for me. That woman must be pretty and come from a rich family, am I right? Also, her educational background must match yours brilliantly, so you should consider her. Why are you even here?" Queenie mocked. After sighing, Nigel stared fixedly at her clear side profile. "Queenie, you're the first woman whom I have fallen in love with, and you'll be the last one as well. No matter how excellent the women my mom introduced to me are, I will never develop any feelings for them. I only have eyes for you." "Fine, then. Let me ask you another question. We've been dating for a month now, but why have you never mentioned anything about bringing me home to your parents?" There was a hint of interrogation in her words. Her question immediately silenced Nigel as he blinked at her. "Queenie, it's my fault for being insensitive. I had thought about bringing you home to meet my parents, but they are constantly urging me to get married, so I was afraid that they might put too much pressure on you." That's why I wanted you to date me a little longer so that you can get to know me better before contemplating marriage with me.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.